Welcome back. We're delighted to see your faces.
You know, I don't think we can see theirs, but they can sure see ours. Hello, we are so happy to be on site here at Campus Lausanne with our wonderful speakers today. And to our speakers, we are so grateful that you're actually able to make it here on campus with us. Welcome to the EHL Hospitality Business School. And yesterday, as we all saw, was quite the debut of the summit.
We had the privilege of listening to big names like the VP of Switzerland Tourism and Mr. Satya Anand from Marriott.
Absolutely. Personally, I loved Miss Koala's keynote. She was really powerful and she delivered an incredible speech.
I personally enjoyed Kaylee Wiltshire and Xavier Pugnal's fireside chat. And it honestly makes me excited for my future here at EHL. Can you believe it? An EHL grad working for Apple?
I actually can. For today, we have 3 riveting keynotes, one from Ms. Ortiguera, one from Mr. Pagano, and one from Mr. Hood. We look forward to one fireside chat and an exciting panel before breaking ground, moderated by Mr. Michael McKay. And that is not all. We also have our exciting delegate session provided by our main YHS partner, Marriott International. Today is going to be a very good day where our delegates will be challenged to realize innovative solutions to real-world problems. Today is going to be an exciting day.
I couldn't agree more. Let's get this show on the road. We were both amazed at how engaged and in tune you guys were yesterday, delegates and audience. Let's keep that same energy from yesterday for today. But Ella, did you know today was a special day?
Of course I did. Today is International Women's Day.
That's right, it sure is.
So what better day it is to start off the day with an extremely influential and talented woman.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Liz Ortiguera. Although Ms. Ortiguera is unequivocally an important leader in the hospitality sector, she was not always in this industry. Ms. Ortiguera used to work in the pharmaceutical industry as a chemical engineer. She now serves the role of CEO of the Pacific Asia Travel Association, or PATA, where she works closely with over 1,000 both public and private sector members to ensure value creation and sustainable growth across the entire Asian Pacific. Ms. Ortiguera's career is multifaceted and impressive, to say the least. However, in her personal life, she is a constant advocate for poverty eradication and education programs throughout the region. Ms. Ortiguera, welcome to YHS 2022. It is a pleasure to have you here, and happy Women's Day. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me today. It's my honor to be speaking to this audience.
It's our honor to have you here. Where are you joining us from?
I'm based in Singapore, beautiful Singapore, as you can see in the background. And I've been living here in Asia Pacific since 2005, and my home city is New York.
Well, thank you so much. For the audience, don't forget to submit your Q&As during the keynote so we can have the Q&A session afterwards. Ms. Ortiguera, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And to our wonderful audience, I'll start off by sharing a bit about the organization that I belong to and that I lead up. I started in this role in June of last year. And so I'm the CEO of Pacific Asia Travel Association. So we've been around since 1951. So for 70 years, we have brought together public and private organizations. We have been and continue to be the largest travel association dedicated to Asia Pacific. And our mission is responsible travel and tourism development to, from, and within Asia. And when we started off back in 1951, it was about educating. It was formed by 2 American GIs that came to the Pacific Islands during the war, and they saw how beautiful the islands were. And they went home and they said, we need to educate the West about these beautiful islands. Well, we've come a long way since then. And since then, Asia Pacific, as you know, is the growth engine for travel and tourism. We have 3 of the 4 most populous countries and rising economies. So certainly this is an area of tremendous growth, and it will be again post-COVID. So the approach that we take is very much global issues with, with local relevancy. And we are the catalyst for a number of areas of responsible tourism, which I'll share now. So this is my depiction. When I started, I was really kind of fascinated because I had spent 18 years at American Express, 10 of those years with Global Business Travel, Amex, and I thought we were large because, yeah, as a global organization, and it is. But when I entered PATA, I was really quite amazed because actually it represents, in its membership base, it represents every corner and facet of the travel industry. From, the heart of our membership base is government at the national level, provincial level, and at the local level, both here in Asia Pacific and also abroad. So, for example, 9 of the 10 ASEAN nations belong to PATA. And in Europe, we have memberships with Tour España, and as well as Catalonia. And so we really are, we have a broad and diverse membership base and partnership base. And in addition to that, we work with a number of development banks like the World Bank, GIZ, and we do some really interesting projects that really work to forward, some of the really important elements of travel and development. So next page, travel as a force for good. Someone said to me when I was at a conference in California a few months ago, they said, I don't know much about PATA, but my impression is that it stands for all that is good in travel. And I loved that description because it's actually quite true. We really look for the right side of travel. We look to advocate all the best practices that we see. And some of the initiatives that we focus on right now include, particularly, for example, the recovery. We are looking for opportunities to support our government members as well as our enterprise members in terms of restoring growth. So topics like the recovery, in destination resilience. Destination resilience is the foundation for sustainability. Sustainability just means maintain, if you look at the definition of that word. So what we do is we've launched a destination resilience program to look at, what are the opportunities to identify risks beyond health and safety. It can be cultural, it can be environmental. How can we make sure that destinations are resilient in the face of potential crises? And then we can look at sustainability. And what I find even more exciting is the concept of regenerative travel. And regenerative travel is, how can my journey give back? And so that destination is actually better for the fact that I visited. And there's some interesting examples of this, but we look for, we really want to forward that and make it so that it's actually a best practice and there's structure and meaning to it, so that it's not just a marketing campaign, but there's real substance to it. So some of the other areas that we're working on, for example, diversity, inclusion, and equity. During this period in the pandemic, it's really important for us to make sure that there's vaccine equity globally. If you're sitting in Europe, you might be very fortunate to have full access to vaccines and boosters, but you should know that there's still about 3 billion people in the world who haven't had their first vaccine. And so for this to really end, so my feeling was I wanted to really champion this in the travel sector because, travel represents some of the most globally minded, aware people, across various industries. We've seen the disparity and we've seen how different people live in other countries. So we can best imagine, that there are inequities and there are people out there that need support. And in order for us to recover globally as an industry, this is really important to address. So these are one of the, we as PATA, we banded together with Collinson and also Virgin Atlantic to form a global vaccine equity travel coalition, so that we can rally consumers and other multinationals to support. So these are a few of the initiatives that we have in terms of the work that we're doing. Informal workers, I'll comment about that. We did a pilot in Thailand because some of the most impacted workers in this downturn in travel have been the frontliners, and they are disproportionately women. So our industry globally has approximately 53% women, 60% in Asia Pacific, and it is in normal times like a jobs growth engine. But, during the pandemic, these lower income frontline jobs were the most impacted. So one of the programs we did was to pilot an outreach to these informal workers who do jobs like vendors, drivers, hostel owners. And we gave outreach and gave them health and safety training, as well as training on how they could pivot their business. And so it's, this is something that is much needed across many countries in our region and beyond, because, we can take for granted, knowing how to wear a mask or knowing how to do an antigen test. But some of these underprivileged don't realize that. So we need to, part of getting our industry up and running again is making sure that we bring everyone along with the restart and ensuring that they're safe. So those are a few of the initiatives that we do as PATA. Here, I'll highlight, when I took this job on in June, I immediately put in place an 8-point plan to support the recovery. And because our network as PATA reaches every aspect of the industry, we really needed to put in like a multifaceted program that would support at a government level, support at an enterprise level, support small businesses. So we basically developed this plan, and I'll just highlight a few of them. So for example, we started convening governments like our government national tourism organizations. And we really wanted to create like a more informal best practice share session. Normally these destinations might be competing for tourists pre-pandemic, but during this pandemic, it's actually been really important to collaborate in ways they hadn't before. So we created this government-only session, and we invited representatives from the Maldives and from Hawaii, the markets that started opening first, to give their best practice share and to talk about, how were they able to open up and what were the challenges they had and what were some best practices. So that's one of the forums that we created. Destination marketing and destination management. That's been really important for destinations since, two things are changing. First of all, they're evolving their policies and the protocols, and they're also changing the product. There's much more awareness, for example, about wellness and how, going beyond the spa and creating an experience for travelers that is unique and different, maybe more nature-based. So there's a lot that's been happening in all the destinations in order to communicate. And so we've been giving them advice on that and giving them platforms to get expertise on how to get their destinations ready and communicate how ready they are to open for business. So those are a couple of the initiatives that we've done. I'll comment that I love the work that PATA does. Maybe I'll take off the presentation now and talk a bit about, my career and how it's kind of evolved over time. I'm very conscious that I'm talking to an audience of students and young professionals. And I'll be honest, when I was at your age, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I did like a challenge. And so I transferred from business school and I went into like a dual degree scientist engineer major, and I went into pharma. And so my first 7-8 years of my career, I spent that as a scientist engineer in pharma R&D for Merck. And I enjoyed it during that period, and I felt very motivated. But then I, wanted to transition into marketing. And so I went to business school and I ended up joining American Express. So at Amex, I worked in 3 divisions. I was in marketing, strategy, and then the last 10 years I was in travel. And then I made another dramatic change, and I decided, I'd been really happy majority of my career at American Express, but I wanted to go build something. So I had the allure of the startup entrepreneurial world. And so I shifted into startup life, and I worked with luxury concierge. I worked with education technology. And that's what brought me then. Pata came calling, and I learned about the opportunity to do this, and I took on the role. And so I guess my lesson for all of you today is that I've had a very indirect path in my career. I've tried vastly different things, and I've enjoyed every part of the journey. But I would say, different roles have been great for me at different times in my career. I think that I think part of it is a journey of like, what do you love to do? What are you good at? What does the world need? And how can you get paid for that? So if I had one lesson from career that I could share with you, is don't always pick, or try not to pick something just for the money. I think the important thing that I've learned is that you don't want to, I think the least successful people that I've met have been the ones that have been paid a lot of money, but they have been bored, or they don't like the environment they're in. And I've seen it time and time again. That can make you quite unhappy, both in your work life and in your personal life, if it's all about the money. And so my advice, again, I would say, don't pick a career just because it makes a lot of money. Figure out what you love to do. And above our basic needs, our most important commodity isn't money, but it's actually time. And if you think about it, we spend the vast majority of our of our waking lives at work. You'll dedicate far more time than you anticipate to work and your career. And I think that it's really important that you like what you do. And so probably the most successful person, the definition is a person who loves what they do, gets paid well for it, because then it doesn't feel like work. And it's also important to feel good about what you're delivering at the end of the day. Part of what drew me to Pata was that I love that it's mission-based, and that it forwards things that are sustainable, that are good for the future, and they have a lasting legacy. And it also happens to tap into the fact that I do love to meet with people, and Pata is a network of networks. So you meet a vast variety of people. And I think that, for me, that's been like the happy combination of what I love to do, and finding a great mission in my personal career. And the other thing I would add is, make sure that your career aligns with your value system. And you can tell right away when you enter a company if you feel good about the decisions that are made, the way people engage with each other. One of the things that I so appreciated about American Express, and I had a very long career there, was its value system, and they call it blue box values. And it was an environment of respect, collaboration, teamwork, and always mutual respect, I would say, at every level, whether you're working, whether it was your staff or your colleagues or a supplier. I think it was very much, so for me, those values resonated. And I think, the thing you will learn is that the value system that you work in starts to influence how you behave. So you want to make sure that it is an environment that you think is aligned with your principles and the way you want to live. And I would say that, that's an important factor that you should assess when you're looking at a job or a company to join. And, one thing I would say about travel is that while it's challenged right now, it's going through this great evolution. And I predict that it will come back in a completely different form in a really powerful way. I think that this division between corporate and leisure travel is going to disappear. It'll be more like blended, integrated travel, because people will do multi-purpose trips, and they'll do longer trips. And this is all, I talk about silver linings to our industry. And I think there are a lot of silver linings that are going to come out of this pandemic and influence the way travel and tourism is done. and it will be, longer stays. People will get to know the culture better. They'll get to experience more of the culture, and hopefully, all of those elements that come with learning about a culture, like bringing down barriers and engaging with the local people. I think those are all good elements that we look forward to. And so, I know that one thing about travel is that when people enter the industry, they tend not to leave. Most of the travel people that you meet have been in the industry 20, 30 years. And there's a reason for that. It's an industry that people are passionate about. There are a lot of great things that come with it in terms of the experiences you can have, what you can produce and what you can create. And it's definitely a lifestyle choice. So I think that, I know some of you may be tentative about the state of the industry currently, but I would say, travel can definitely be a force for good. It has been. It is one of the industries that was and will continue to be, post-pandemic, an engine for jobs creation. It's an industry that brings down cultural barriers and increases cultural awareness and understanding. And it's a great mechanism for poverty alleviation. And so there are many different elements to it. And I think that, it will, there are other facets as well. Appreciation for the environment, appreciation for the cultures. And so there are many, many elements of the industry that have people love it and continue to love it. And so I know that all of you may be in a position to choose, what industry that you enter, and just think about it. Think about your value system, think about what you love to do, and go with your intuition on your choices. And especially today, I wanted to acknowledge, I'll share with you, since today is International Women's Day, as PATA, we are taking the month of March to basically connect some of the great women leader colleagues that I know within the PATA community across many countries, connect them with the younger generation to deliver great advice, and to basically show that, there are leaders that look like them in their home countries. And we've got tremendous diversity and power across these various countries. And so just about an hour ago, I completed a first webinar where we featured a conversation on supporting women leaders in the industry, as well as words of advice from many of these women, who represent countries as diverse as Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, Sri Lanka, and many others. So I think, to all the women and the young women that are on this webinar, we celebrate the future and the opportunity for you. I look forward to a more diverse and equitable industry, and where we have more balance. So maybe with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ortiguera, for that keynote. It was wonderful. We do have a couple of questions for you. The first one being, considering our current labor shortage, what can we learn from other industries in terms of retaining talent?
I think that, well, first of all, I think in general, the one important lesson for employers is to consider their staff holistically. So we talk about this trend for like holistic wellness, where it's, self, community, and the environment. So I think that the whole world has been through a lot of stress and challenge in the last 2 years. And I think that being supportive and being an empathetic leader, and considering the holistic needs of your staff is more important than ever. And it's interesting. There are, I've traveled globally to many markets. I did one trip in last quarter that took me through 6 countries, 10 cities. And there are countries where they are really seeking staffing. And then others where we're waiting for the travel to restart. So the opportunities are out there. I think it's just a matter of being flexible and looking for what you want.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
We have another question for you. What was the drive behind all your career shifts, and what enabled you to move between different industries so smoothly?
Oh, I wouldn't say smoothly. There are challenges, but yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate. I think that the drive for my career changes, I would say that different careers were right at different points in time in my life. But whatever I did, I made sure that when I was doing it, I did it with commitment and ambition, and I worked hard at it. And I think that's what helped me transition. I'd say, going to business school did help me transition. I'd say I went to school. I got 2 degrees during my undergraduate, and then I went to Columbia Business School. And then just 5 years ago, I went back for a senior executive program at Stanford. So I'd say, lifelong learning, whether it's formal or informal, will serve you at every single stage of your career and be really fulfilling for you. Because I think the more that you, study and explore like what you love to do, the more it'll open doors for you. So I'd say those are probably the key reasons I was able to transition from like very extreme different careers, as well as transition from country to country, because I went from the US to Japan and then from Japan to Singapore. And so I would say that always maintain that kind of lifelong learning attitude and learn from all different sources. School is just one source. Like you can learn from your colleagues, learn from kids, learn from, online. I think you just keep your perspective open and continue learning.
I absolutely agree. That's some great advice. We have one more. What was the drive behind? Oh no, that's the last one actually. I'm so sorry. I thought we had another one. Never mind.
Okay.
Ms. Ortiguera, thank you so much for that keynote. I really, really enjoyed it. What was your favorite part, Sam?
Ms. Ortiguera, I did not know that Pato was created by 2 American GIs. That's really interesting. Saw the beauty of this and did that. And I also really appreciate hearing your career journey and your personal journey. Very fascinating. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.